Okay, so this is going to be a quick hit video, which basically means it's just my drawing and I'm not doing anything too fancy. But it's more to share about a subject that I think needs more attention. And that's why Lancelets and Tunicates are not perfect missing link or analogies for transitional fossils to the chordate lineage. And to kind of make that point, we're going to use the fossil record and go back to a very important event in time, which is called the Cambrian explosion. So that's right here if I draw a line. And basically what this is a time when animal body plans expanded rapidly, and the time before that life was much less diverse. And then as we came out of that, we had major radiation, and basically we quickly converged on the modern day body plans, including things like vertebrates. And so just to kind of step back a bit, the Ediacaran is the time before, and then the Cambrian explosion happened at this line. So today we're not going to talk much about protostomes. Protostomes are the animals with the jointed legs. We're talking about the deuterostomes, and these include the chordates. Okay, so the way we're going to address this systematically is we're going to talk about synaptomorphies. And synaptomorphies are basically shared traits that are unique to a clade, and a clade is a group of animals. And in this case, we're going to talk about segmentation in myomeres. We're going to talk about pharyngeal slits, which are basically gills in the final product. And then we're going to talk about tail position versus anus. And then we're going to talk about the anterior and the head complexity. Now, it kind of sounds weird, but you have to remember, as we go through this process, these animals didn't start fully developed. So we're going to look at how they evolved and then where lancelets and tunicates actually fit into here. So the first animal we're going to talk about is Herpetogaster. And this is basically a stalked animal, and it or a similar related member of its clade called Cambroernids basically has just recently been discovered in the Ediacaran. So we're back here in the Precambrian, and we have our first probable part of the chordate lineage. So we have that taking off and going this way. It was found at about 546 million years ago in the Jiangchuan biota in the Dinying Formation. So this is China, and China is producing a lot of these amazing fossils. And the basic body plan here is that we have, it's a stalked animal, first of all, and then it's basically a worm on a stalk. You can kind of think of it that way, but this isn't a worm at all. It just looks like one. The first thing is it's segmented, and it already has a somewhat clear head, in the sense that out of this you have these two feeding structures, these appendages that have like feather-like appearance to them, and they're symmetrical and come off this upper segment, and then it's segmented and comes down. The interesting thing is on this animal, the anus comes out the end of the tail. So it has basically its tail is its anus. And then the other interesting thing is the head complexity is pretty complex already, but these feeding structures are on the head, and these are probably related to the pharynx or the pharyngeal area. So the pharyngeal area has been described in some of the later ones, and these are tied to that already. So that's our first animal, Herpetogaster. So now for our second animal, our lineage goes across from the Ediacaran to the Cambrian, and we get this really enigmatic group, this really cool group called Vetulicolia. Vetulicolia are basically a very simple, almost like it's a bipartite body plan. So it has two parts. There's kind of the head region and the tail region. And it's segmented, but a lot of these have like a hard shell on top. So that's kind of what I'm showing here, but it would be segmented. What's cool is automatically we get the very first evidence of clear segmentation that's being used for power. So all these segments in its tail basically made this thing where it could move through the water, and it was floating and swimming around. Water would come in its mouth, and then it would use these pharyngeal slits here, and the water would come and filter through this, and it would get nutrients. So the water was kind of coming in and out and filtering food that would go into its simple body plan. It really didn't have much going on its head, except those pharyngeal slits are actually surprisingly advanced for this. But there are no eyes or anything else. It just has bilateral pharyngeal slits, and then the mouth. The interesting thing is its anus comes out the end of its tail, just like a worm. So it doesn't have a true tail yet that's beyond the anus. Basically, its anus is at the tip of its tail. So our next big jump from the Ediacaran in this Jiangchuan biota is to the Xinjiang biota. So this whole swath of animals here are from the Xinjiang biota. Now, these are from the Maotianshan shales, and they are about 518 million years. So you can think, going from 546 to 518, that's a pretty big jump in time. So we've had a lot of kind of a staircase of evolution through here. But this is our next big stop. Okay, so as we proceed from Herpetogaster to Vitulicolia, now we're going into this animal called Yunanzun. And this is a fascinating animal. It's very controversial and somewhat, it's been debated for a long time where exactly it fits, but there's been some recent literature comes out that the vascular system and also the details of these pharyngeal arches are consistent with a chordate, a stem chordate, or possibly even a stem vertebrate. But that kind of resolution, I think, we'll never fully understand. But we're getting closer and closer through time, as is science. So the first thing on Yunanzun is we have these very distinct, I'll call them pseudomyomeres. So think of a salmon, where a salmon, when you see the patty, it has very clear chevron-shaped or V-shaped muscles. This has a very early version of that. It's not that different than a segment, but it's kind of transitional. The other feature here, and this isn't really one of our synaptomorphies, but these are gonads. I just need to make that clear. But what is interesting is it has these very clear 7 pharyngeal slits, and these have a rod that runs along the bottom, and then they have these rods that run up, and these feather-like features that come off. And these are one of the lines of evidence that this thing could even be a vertebrate, but is most likely chordate. It also has this little disc on its mouth, just showing that its opening mouth has a little specialized feature down there. The other interesting thing is there's a spiraling gut in here that kind of tips out right before the tail. So we start to see our first evidence of a tail. Now, our next animal, as we go from Yunanzun, would be this Cathaemyrus. Now, Cathaemyrus is from the Xinjiang, but the world famous version of it is actually a younger site. So we went from 518 to 505 million years ago, and this is called the Burgess Shale. A lot of people have heard of this. It's in Canada. So this is another Chinese shot, but we're going to jump to this one because they're just so beautifully preserved and we have so much information from them. But these are pretty similar to the animal that's in the Xinjiang, but we'll stick with Picaia. Pikaia. That one's a hard one for me to say. Pikaia. But he has a series of gonads along the bottom, but he has a distinct little micro head possibly, but some distinct sensory tentacle appendages coming out the front, and then these early S-shaped chevron like myomeres. So this is actually probably the lineage that was most like the Lancelets. So what's interesting is this lineage here, after Yunnan Azun, kept going all the way down through hundreds of millions of years and kept on evolving. So that's a fascinating animal and very significant in our evolutionary history. So what's interesting though, right here is where I have this Cathemyrus, and it's different than Pikaia, but it's a different animal, but it's very similar, so I'm putting them in the same clade, so to speak. But back here in the Xinjiang, we have our first pretty clear vertebrate. And vertebrate in the sense that it has nearly all the features. It has, first of all, its head has beautiful eyes. It actually has 4 eyes. It has pharyngeal slits that are very gill-like. It has an open mouth, and then its gut comes out and it has a distinct tail. And then it has very clear chevron-like myomeres. So Haikuithes is probably the descendant that evolved through time and evolved into jaws. Like, so one of these pharyngeal slits, if you remember, evolved into the jaw, and then that's your sharks. And then the other fish became tetrapods that became mammals, and all this evolution, you know, the dinosaurs, the birds, primates, all this happened out of this vertebrate lineage. But it wasn't the only one to make it. Remember this, Yunnan Zun probably went extinct, but this Pikaia lineage also, in this model, continued all the way to the end here, and that would be your Lancelet. And that's one of the things that's the core problem. So you might ask then, where did it get its differences? Because it's quite a bit different than this animal, and let's talk about that. Okay, so I have two points to make in this summary. One is to just show this in a context of peer-reviewed literature to make sure everyone understands the differences and where it came from. And the second is to show why Lancelets and Tunicates are not great analogies. So the first, a lot of this is derived from this paper here. This is an excellent paper that just came out. And the only thing I've really done is taken his plot and put it in geologic time. And the big thing here is Pikaia is a very similar animal but different than this Cathemyrus, which goes back to the Xinjiang. But the better preservation of this animal is in fact in the Burgess Shale. And so if you look at it, it's absolutely beautiful. And this is a beautiful Xinjiang Yunnan Zun. This is a Burgess Shale Pikaia. But you can see the detail that these things have and not a whole lot of uncertainty. So why aren't these good analogies? Well, let's just focus mostly on this Lancelet here. The first thing is, and we'll go through these real quick. So the myomeres and the segmentation, which ultimately represent, if you have this dorsal hollow nerve cord, then you get this, and the notochord, you get this myomere pattern. That's when you have pretty advanced musculature. And it's got very advanced, modern-ish looking musculature. It also has a tail beyond the anus, which interestingly, in this paper, he has the anus at the end. But if you look at this spiraling gut in here, you can kind of see it. It actually tears out here. So there's a little bit of a tail in this guy in most interpretations. This particular one may not show it as well as others. but certainly he's got an advanced body. And then when it comes to these the pharyngeal slits, those are very modern. But where he's different is that his head is much less developed than either one of these animals. So when we come back up here, over all this geologic time, somehow he lost his head. Or I wouldn't say lost his head, but lost features of the head. And if you look in this paper, you can see the lancelet here, and that he has head loss written in here. And so this isn't something that's really controversial, it's pretty well known. And basically it doesn't have the sense organs. So why would it do that? Well, the main thing is lancelets went from one of these guys that were free swimming. So they're swimming in the water column to something that kind of buried itself and filter fed at the top. And think of it sort of as a cave fish that loses its eyes because it just doesn't use them. Evolution doesn't care how you survive. It only cares that you do survive and pass on your genes. And this is the point here. He's got this advanced body but no head. So that has some real implications on how this thing plays back into the understanding analogies. Tunicates are even more extreme. Their larval form is very vertebrate-like, but then their body is a sessile filter feeder. So again, this regressive evolutionary pattern is kind of an arms race, and here's what I think is going on. So basically these vertebrates like Hyculites, you know, they take off into sharks, they take off into fish, mammals that become free-swimming whales and dolphins. This is a very competitive niche. Whereas some animals want to take a different path and become these benthic filter feeders. And that saves them and makes them an easier life. And that's very similar to what also the tunicate would have done. Okay, that's what I've got. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for listening.